They're here.
So yeah, at first, I just didn't know what to do.
At first, Daddy was confused.
I didn't know it was going to affect people in Nassau and Freeport.
And then I told him it was just the first three numbers.
Our new phone numbers have arrived, but there is no need to be afraid. Only the first three numbers have changed. The new numbers are in effect now.
Good Saturday evening, everyone. You're tuned into NB12, the Weekend Edition. Coming up tonight in news, are plans underway to privatize the national flag carrier? Why the FNM says government should abandon BTC take-back talks. The police commissioner concerned about new numbers houses, plus a look at teenage pregnancy in the Bahamas. The details of those stories and a whole lot more are on the way. I'm Monique Toot, and NB12 Weekend starts now. Topping news tonight, Bahamas Air has cost Bahamian taxpayers more than $500 million since it was created in 1973. Now, the Prime Minister says it is time for him to shift his focus to the national flag carrier and possible reform. This as he denied that any deal has been made with Chinese investors to privatize the airline. Christina McNeil has that story.
Suggesting that government subsidies of the national flag carrier cannot continue, the Prime Minister says the time has come for Bahamas Air to justify its spot as the national airline. Prime Minister Christie says a public-private partnership may be in the future for the airline. However, he shot down suggestions that any deal has been made with Chinese investors in relation to the airline's privatization.
We must now move to ensure that Bahamas Air is able to match and really to give the country what it deserves. That is, helping to pioneer markets, going into new markets, and that clearly I must have something in mind by the way in which I've spoken. But I'm told that the president of the airline union indicated that I'd had some deal or I'd made some relationship with Chinese. That's not so. I am now turning my attention specifically to Bahamas Air and to the way in which the Bahamas is promoted, the way in which millions of dollars are spent promoting the Bahamas, spent in association with airlines, in joint marketing, and that we want to be able to maximize the amount of money we spend and the return on that money we spend.
The union representing the airline's employees has claimed that the privatization process for Bahamas Air may already be underway. It's no secret that the airline continues to place financial strain on the government, which costs about $25 million to operate on an annual basis. Christie telling reporters that government will be taking a closer look at Bahamas Air.
My government being asked by me to examine now Bahamas Air, recognizing that we have subsidized it to date over $500 million, that it must do more to justify being a national airline, and that my own view is that there has to be a public-private partnership moving forward.
Bahamas Air Managing Director Henry Woods tells our news team that labor costs are Bahamas Air's biggest burden, something they're seeking to address. Reporting for NB12, I'm Christina McNeil.
The Free National Movement is urging Prime Minister Christie to abandon his campaign promise to reacquire 2% of cable and wireless communication shares in BTC and just move on. Christie revealed Thursday night that the resignation of CWC CEO Tony Rice could halt government's take-back talks with the firm. However, FNM Chairman Darren Cash urged Christie to give up the ghost.
So he gets an F in that regard. Because he's failing, he's floundering, and it's time for him to be finished with this. He's got to make a definitive position about what it is this government wants, what they're prepared to pay, and announce what the final position is, so that entrepreneurs who want to be a part of a liberalized environment, as far as wireless is concerned, are able to do so. So right now, he is an impediment to the advancement of this sector. He is the impediment. Perry, Gladstone, Christie.
From the start, the F&M has criticized Christie's efforts to regain a majority stake in BTC, calling it a waste of time and one that may send the wrong message to the international community. Cash says the fact that Christie hasn't been able to fulfill his campaign promise more than a year after negotiations began speaks volumes.
By any objective measure, Prime Minister Christie's handling of his government's relationship with cable and wireless and BTC has been somewhere along the lines of woefully naive and amateurish to incompetent. It is clear that the Prime Minister does not have a handle on this, or he does have a handle on it and refuses to be open and honest with the Bahamian people.
Before Rice's resignation, Christie said Rice proposed that government could take back 2% of BTC shares with conditions. He says he may reveal what those conditions are. However, Cash asserted there could only be two possible areas.
One, an extremely exorbitant amount of cash that the government of the Bahamas is not in a position to provide, or two, they are able to get it back in order and the price for it will be that BTC then maintains a cellular monopoly for another 4 or 5 whatever number of years. Well, if those are the conditions, it's time for the Prime Minister to come clear and tell the Bahamian people what they are.
Phil Bentley has been appointed the new CEO effective January 1st, 2014. He will also become the new chairman of BTC's board. In his latest report, the Auditor General has raised concerns about the lack of a competitive bidding process in the awarding of over $600,000 in government contracts, especially as it relates to trucking, roadside, and parking maintenance. Those contracts were reportedly awarded over a 2-year period. Here's a look. According to the 2011 Auditor General report, during the course of the audit, officials discovered that an exorbitant amount of money was spent on trucking, roadside, and park maintenance contracts without a competitive bidding process. During the period 2009-2010, a roadside contract was awarded for $167,400. The following year, a roadside contract in the amount of $183,600 was awarded. As for the maintenance of small-scale parks, the report revealed that a $125,000 contract was awarded without competitive bidding for the 2009-2010 period, and a $124,000 contract was awarded the following year. The total on those 4 contracts, $600,600. According to the 183-page report, based on this analysis and payments reviewed, we further observed that an exorbitant amount of funds was being expended on trucking, roadside, and park maintenance. Officials in the Auditor General's office reportedly inquired about the selection process for contractors and were informed by the director that vendors were chosen from a list in the ministry's possession. The report continues. In the absence of competitive bids being sought, we could not determine whether the government received value for money. Additionally, officials concluded that this process lacked transparency. Therefore, they could not say whether all payments made were legitimate. To ensure there is equity, accountability, and transparency going forward, the Auditor General recommended that A, the approved list of vendors be produced for audit review, and B, a competitive bidding process for the selection of contractors be implemented. Well, Environment Health Director Melanie McKinsey says her department has already implemented all of the recommendations outlined in the Auditor General's report in an effort to cut wasteful spending. She confirmed a new vetting policy and background checks are now in place to put an end to questionable contracts. Nearly 9 months after voters rejected the regulation and taxation of web shops, those businesses remain open. But more importantly, have you noticed the new web shops popping up across New Providence? Well, it hasn't escaped the attention of the Commissioner of Police, Ellison Greenslade. He told NB12 it's a major concern for the Royal Bahamas Police Force.
It is certainly today a matter of concern. The public has spoken loudly to it. I've responded to it on several occasions. And I'm simply going to posit that there is an intelligent public out there. I'm listening carefully and I'm observing.
Just last month, Greenslade renewed calls for all web shops to cease their illegal gaming activities, warning that police can act at any time. He also noted that when Bahamians least expect it, they might see lots of activity from the police force. Greenslade said his eyes and ears remain open.
I'm going to continue to pay attention. I'm going to continue to pay attention to that. I take fully the point you raise, and I understand the implications of what is happening, and I will definitely be paying attention to that.